Hello and welcome to this episode of the Cloud Native Trainer with Mike. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use Jekyll, the static site generator with GitHub Pages in order to host your project blog. What we'll end up in the end of is this relatively simple website. You can see we have blog posts, we've got additional pages, we're using one of the supported themes in Jekyll called Hacker. And we'll show you how to install both the default theme, how to customize and change that to use one of the other supported themes and additional changes you can do. We'll show how to create the site inside of GitHub and ultimately how to build and deploy it. So if this is something you're interested in, stay tuned, and over the next 45-50 minutes I will guide you through how to get your own site working on GitHub Pages. So what do you need in order to start this course? Well, first up we're going to need Git. Git is a version control system which allows us to save our code, and also it has good integration with GitHub, which ultimately is the place where we'll be hosting our website. We'll need some sort of terminal, so either PowerShell on Windows or the Linux terminal, or indeed if you're running macOS, then the Mac terminal. Then there's Visual Studio Code, which is a text editor or development environment which we will use to author our code. Ruby, the runtime environment that Jekyll runs upon. A GitHub account to host GitHub Pages and also to store the code if we want to share it with other people. And finally we need Jekyll, which is the static site generator. So to install the prerequisites, the easiest way to install Git is to use Git for Windows. I've got a course on this already. I'll link that above if you want to view that in a bit more detail. Otherwise, head over to gitforwindows.org. If you're on macOS, if you try to run Git at the command line using the Git command, on the first run it will automatically install Git along with the Xcode DevTools. So nice and easy there. If you're running PowerShell on Windows, we recommend that you don't use the default Windows PowerShell, but instead use Winget to install the PowerShell 7, which is a cross-platform version and more up to date. So if you run the Winget install ID Microsoft.PowerShell source Winget, the first line, that will get you the latest stable version, and if you use the .preview version, that will get you the latest preview release, which isn't quite as stable. So just to reiterate, don't use Windows PowerShell. To get VS Code, head over to code.visualstudio.com, download the version for your platform, follow through the steps there, and you should be good to go. Then we come to Ruby. So Ruby is the runtime that Jekyll runs upon, so it's what it's needed in order to actually run Jekyll itself. There's a number of ways of getting Ruby. One of them is via the main Ruby website, but I'll go into detail for both macOS and Windows next. Okay, let's make a start and install Ruby for Windows. We will use the Ruby installer for this, which will allow us to install both Ruby and the Ruby Dev Kit. So if we head on over to rubyinstaller.org, download it, we'll get the latest one with the dev kit. Start to download, so let's speed this up and come back in a minute. Okay, the download is completed. Let's open the folder. Okay, let's double click on the installer. We've got this when Microsoft Defender Smart Screen warning. So if we click on more info, we can override that and hit run anyway. I'll just install for myself, accept the license, next. Here we see the path that Ruby is going to be installed into, and also there is an option to add Ruby to our path, which we'll need in order to be able to use Ruby on the command line. And it's also going to associate Ruby files with this installation, so that's all good. Let's hit install. Let's leave the documentation and the MSys2 development toolchain enabled. So we'll leave it to install. Okay, now we have the option to run the RIDK install. So we want to leave this ticked so that we can be able to use all the native gems with C extensions. So let's hit finish. Now the RIDK install is going to run. From the options, we want to choose option 3 and hit enter. Okay, that's now completed. Let's open a fresh terminal and let's type ruby v -v even. Check that Ruby has been added to the path and has been installed. So we're now ready to proceed to install Jekyll. Installing Ruby on macOS is relatively straightforward using Brew, which is a package manager available for macOS. In order to install it, there's a simple curl command that you can run. So you can see this bin bash -c curl, it then goes and gets an install script. So what you'll need to do is run this, and that will trigger the install of Brew, and once it's installed, then we can proceed to actually do the installation for Ruby. So here we have our next one. So once this is completed, look to do brew install, and specifically we want to install chruby and ruby install, these two packages. chruby is like a package manager for Ruby, and then we've got the Ruby install package itself. So we'll install those, and then after that's completed, it'll take a couple of minutes. We can then do the Ruby install and install the latest stable version of Ruby, which at the time of this recording was 3.3.5. Once that's all installed, it should all be, we can check to see whether or not Ruby has been added to the path with ruby-v. If it hasn't, we can then run the set path commands listed here. I'll add the detail in the description so that you don't have to write these out verbatim from the screen. You'll just be able to copy and paste. Okay, now whether you're on Windows or macOS, we're now ready to install Jekyll. So if you open a terminal, in my case I'm on Windows and we're using PowerShell, but the commands will be the same for macOS. We're going to use the gem install command to install Jekyll and Jekyll's bundler. So we should do that now with gem install Jekyll bundler. Enter. And let's give it a minute and it should install. Okay, Jekyll is now finished installing. Let's just double check that we can actually use it. So if we type in Jekyll-v, this should return the version of Jekyll, which should be 4.3.4. There we go. So Jekyll is now ready for use. As I mentioned before, we're going to need a GitHub account to make everything work with GitHub Pages. So now's a good time to head over to github.com, sign up with your email address, get yourself an account. This will be a place where we can store our code, but primarily we're going to be using this for hosting our actual finished website using GitHub Pages. Okay, let's start by building our Jekyll website on GitHub Pages. So to start, we need to head over to github.com, sign in, and then we're going to make a new repository. So we go over to the left here, hit new. The repository needs to be our username. So in my instance, that's MikeKelly21. .github.io. The repository should be public, and that's enough for now. So we hit create repository. We now need to create a local folder so we can copy this down. So you see there's already some instructions here for us to follow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch my terminal. I'm going to change into repos. So I'm in repos. Now I need to create a new directory. So I'm going to create one the same name as the site that I've just created. Now I'm going to change into that directory, and I'm going to run this code. So just hit over here, which copies it to the clipboard. Come back to PowerShell, paste anyway, hit enter. And what this has done, or will do, once we log in, let's log into my account, is you can see here it's added a README file, readme.md. It's committed that file. It's then changed to the main branch, added in our GitHub repository as a remote, and then it's pushed the changes. So when we come back to GitHub, we hit refresh. We'll now get an empty repository with the README file. So the end game here is we want a GitHub Pages website, and this will actually be the domain. So if we go to this address in our browser now, let's get rid of the public bit, so just the github.io, we can see that we have a web page. So this is the default behavior in GitHub. When you create a repository or public repository that has your username.github.io, it creates a website for you. And this website is actually using Jekyll under the hood. It might take a couple of minutes for it to show up here, because what it's actually doing is building your site in the background using GitHub Actions. So we go to GitHub Actions. We can see that we actually have a build event here. So pages build and deployment, which was triggered a minute ago. And then we click into the detail here. We can see that it's actually done the deployment to our website. And that took all of 8 seconds. So we've got essentially a dummy website at this point. What do we do next? Well, now we want to set up a website locally in our new folder, so the MikeKelly21 folder that we have here, and we want to initialize even Jekyll and start customizing it to meet our needs and start adding content. So the first step to that is, we'll just clear my screen just so we can see everything that's going on, is we want to create a new Jekyll website inside of this folder. So if we run Jekyll new, and we're going to skip bundle, and the bundle is basically where it would execute and build the website, and we use dot, that will mean that we will install the new site into the current folder. So we hit enter. And we can see we get an error message here saying that the site already exists, and helpfully it says that we can overwrite this using the force flag. So let's do that. So -- force, let's enter again. And we can now see that we have some content. So we have a post folder, a config.yaml, a 404.html, a gem file, and a readme. So good start, but at the moment this doesn't do anything. So we skipped the actual bundle stage, and that was so that we could make some configuration changes to the files, so that we can make sure that the right version of Jekyll is installed for GitHub Pages, as GitHub Pages does not support the latest version of Jekyll, which is version 4 something. I think it's pinned to version 3. So we will make those changes now. So we're going to want to open up Visual Studio Code. We can do that typing in code dot, which will bring up code editor inside of the current directory. So let's do that now. So first things first, let's hit the gem file. You can see that we're currently going to install Jekyll 4.3.4. We don't want that, so let's just comment that out. And then we are going to come down to this line and comment it back in. So this enables GitHub Pages. As you can see, if you want to use GitHub Pages, remove the gem Jekyll above, which we did, and uncomment the line below. Now we're going to want a specific version. So let's start doing that. And then here we would put the actual version number. We can see what the version number is by going to the dependency version page. So let's go back to Chrome. Let's open that page. So these are all the GitHub Pages dependency versions, so you can see that it supports Jekyll 3.1, and the information we need at the moment is the GitHub Pages version, which is 2.3.2. So let's just copy that. Go back to VS Code. We'll drop in 2.3.2 here. Let's get rid of those extra spaces. And let's just save that file. And what we're going to do is go back to our terminal. Let's clear the screen. And we're going to do bundle install. And this will download the correct version of Jekyll, install it, and set up our gemlock file. So let's have a quick look in gemlock. Let's find the version of Jekyll. So we can see it's version 3.10, GitHub Pages is 2.3.2. So that's all good. Next thing we want to do is open up our git ignore, and we want to ignore our gemlock file. Okay, and then the next stage we want to start making some changes to our config YAML. So we might want to set a title, so this could be Mike's blog. You could set the email, the description. So this will be something that can be pulled into our site later. We can do things like what are our GitHub username, what's our Twitter, and then we start looking at things like our actual theme. We'll come back to this in a bit, but for now we can see that it's got a default theme called Minima, and it's got a default set of plugins which is Jekyll feed. So what do we need to do in order to see all this locally? Well, we can go back to our terminal and we can do a bundle exec Jekyll serve, and what this will do is run the Jekyll build command and the Jekyll serve, and ultimately launch this on our local host. That's our local laptop. Okay, so we can see the server address here. If I do control click, see there's an error that there wasn't a favicon.ico that found, but that shouldn't make any difference. But you can see on localhost we have Mike's blog. There's a default post that's been added. You can see when we changed the title to Mike's blog, that's come through. Your email examples also come from the config, as has my Twitter and GitHub handles. And when I mentioned the awesome description, again we can change that. So we have a post which demonstrates the kind of content that we can have, and also we have a page. So this is pretty much default, but now it's like, okay, so we can see this running locally. How do we get it over here? Because this is still exactly the same. Now this is where we need to commit our changes. So first off, let's just stop Jekyll running locally. We can get our terminal back. We have to terminate 2 batch jobs. We can do a git status now to see where we are. So we can see there's a whole host of new files that have been added, so we need to add them into Git. So we can do that simply by doing git add dot to add everything in the current directory. And then we need to do a git commit. Let's just do first commit. That will do. And then let's do a git push, which will take all our local changes and push them up to GitHub. Select the account we want to use if you've got multiple. Okay, so that's done. See, no changes just yet, but that's because it needs to build the changes. If we come back into GitHub and have a look at the actions, let's go straight there. We can see a new build has been queued. So if we click on that, you can see it's currently building the website. Once it's finished the build, it will then deploy it, and once the deployment's finished, we will be able to see the changes on our GitHub pages. So there we go. Our changes should now be on mikekelly201.github.io. So let's go and have a look. Hit refresh. And there we go. There's our blog. Our site's now hosted on GitHub Pages, but it's only got dummy content, this welcome to Jekyll. So how do we go about adding content to the site, both as a page or as a post? Let's take a look now. Okay, let's head over to Visual Studio Code. Let's have a look around our site. We can see that we have a page here. So this is our about page. And if we wanted to create another page, we could simply just copy this, paste it back in. Let's rename it. Let's say, what could we call it? Let's have a contact page. And then there's a few things that we need to concern ourselves about. The first is what we call the front matter. So this is the layout our page is going to use. Specifically, we're going to use the page layout. So this is part of our template. We want to set the title. So this could be contact. We want a URL. So maybe that could be a child of the about. So let's do that. And then let's get rid of some of this content, and we'll go contact me on Twitter using this is Mike Kelly. We can do basically whatever we want in a normal markdown file. So I could have we could make a title. So this could be Twitter. We could have GitHub. That was Mike Kelly 21. Okay, really basic. Let's just save that file now. Let's go back to our terminal. Let's restart our local website so we can see the changes. So we'll do the bundle exec Jekyll serve. Let's click on that. We can now see that we have a contact page. So if we click on there, we can see our titles being brought through from the front matter. And I say, as we were using Markdown, you could see I've declared a heading for both Twitter and GitHub, and we've added a little bit of content, and the URL matches what we put as well. So I said, okay, let's make this a child of about, and it's done that. So that's how you add a very simple page. Now let's have a look at adding a post. To add a post, let's head back to Visual Studio Code. Let's go into our posts directory, and we can see that we have a welcome post. So let's do the same thing again. Let's just copy that, and let's select the post directory and paste inside, and we'll rename it. So first things first, we can see that this is today's date, so that's fine. Now we want the title, so this could be, let's say, Kubernetes. .markdown. We'll want to use the layout of the post, so that's fine. We need to change the title, so let's make that Kubernetes. The date and time, we could change this to our current time, so 14:26. Over here we have the time zone. I'm in British Summer Time at the moment, so +1's fine. And then we can set some categories. So let's do K8S as the shorthand for Kubernetes. I don't really want any of this content, so that can go. Let's save that. And I've just paused a minute there. I'll get some content to paste into here so that we can see it in action. Okay, let's paste that content in there. See a little bit more of Markdown in action, some bold text, some third level headings, some lists. That'll do nicely. So let's save that. Let's go back to our terminal. We can see that it's regenerated the feed for the posts. So if we go back to the blog, let's refresh the page. We can now see that we've got a Kubernetes entry, and if we click on that, we can see our brand new post. Okay, so looking much better. We have a new page. We have some blog content other than the default, and it looks a bit like my blog. So good start. Okay, so I've decided I don't like this theme. What are my options? Well, given we're using GitHub Pages, there's only a certain set of supported themes, so we'll need to make sure that we use one of those. We head over to the supported themes page. We can see a list of all the themes. Let's have a look at, say, Hacker. That looks like an interesting one. That'll take us to the GitHub page for the theme. Scroll down to the bottom, we can see a preview, so let's click on that. Okay, that maybe looks a bit more like what I'm after. Bit basic, but yeah, this will do. So I'm going to use the Hacker theme. So what do I need to do, or what do I need to change on my existing? Well, first off, we're going to need to stop the the local Jekyll instance. So let's do that first. Let's go into the Visual Studio Code, and what we're going to do is, so the documentation says to change a theme we should simply go to our config.yaml file and go to the theme, and then we can change it, and the format is Jekyll theme and then the name of the supported theme, which would be Hacker. Now that might work on GitHub Pages, but it certainly won't show the changes locally, so let's just double check. So we do the bundle exec Jekyll serve. First thing it says is that we have some errors. So the layout page requested in about.markdown, contact.markdown, and index.markdown does not exist. Okay, so what does that actually mean when we go to our website? Let's have a look. Blank web page. Not what we want. Okay, let's cancel that. Let's Control C to stop the website. Okay, so let's work through these errors first. So the first is about.markdown. Let's go and have a look at about.markdown. It is using the page layout. So why wouldn't a page layout exist? Okay, let's have a look at the source code for Hacker. So if I bring that over here, let's go into the layouts. Okay. That's a bit disappointing. So there's a default.html and a post.html. So these are the two layouts that we can use. We can see that post actually uses default. Okay. So with that in mind, we can change this very simply to use default, because we know that's included or should be included in the theme. And we go to contact, we do the same. Save those. And what was the other error we got? Index. So index.markdown, and that's using a home layout template, which we don't have. So let's do that. So let's restart it. Do we get any errors now? Still got this GitHub metadata, but I don't think that's particularly required. So let's do that. Right, okay. So we have a theme. Unfortunately, all our content's disappeared. But we know that our about page existed at about. So there we go. Our about page is still there. We know our contact page existed at about contact. And that's all there. So what we're missing then is stuff within the theme that would allow us to get to some of these pages. So we could just add links. Right. Let's have a look how we customize this theme a bit to get it to do what we want to do. If we want to customize this theme, how do we go about doing that? Let's head over to Visual Studio Code and let's have a look at what we've got. So we know that we have somewhere built in this default layout, and it's not doing a right lot for us at the moment in terms of that home page. There isn't much content. We can't see our posts, we can't see our pages. So how do we change that? First off, let's create a new folder, call it layouts. This is where all the code that we want to use to override the theme layouts will go. So I'm going to create a new file in here. Let's call this index.html, as it will ultimately be used by our index page. And now we need some things to go in it. If we have a look at the Minima theme, let's bring that over here. Let's see how it does its job. So we go into the layouts. We can see that there's a base. We'll look at base. That's including a header and a footer. That's fine, but we've already got that in our default. We've got this home one. So this would be our home page, or what we've just called index. And within there we can see it's got the front matter, which is looking at the base layout. So that ultimately imports that, and then it uses this content. So this is using liquid templates, and there's some special variables within the liquid templates that allows us to get certain information. So one of the main ones here is the content. So anything that we would add in our markdown page as content would be displayed here. So that's how most of our pages work. And if we wanted to show all the posts, there's some liquid code relating to that. So we can see if there is some posts, then it will render this part of the website, and if there wasn't any, it wouldn't. And then we can see we have a post list, and then it says for posts and posts, then show these different bits. So we can see a post title, a post excerpt, all looks good to me. So I think what we should probably do is, as we're writing a blog, let's use some of these and see how we get on. So if I just take this section for now, and let's minimize that and go to our page. First off, we're going to want to, if we go back, sorry, that's that top bit. So just layout and base. So we're going to need that bit front matter. So that's 3 dashes, layout, and we can use default because that's what we have in the front matter. Then let's paste in what we've taken from the Minima. So we know that we've got this section, so we're going to need an end if to close it. So let's put that in. So that now surrounds our entire section. We've got a page title. I don't think we need that for the moment, so that can go. We then have a post list. So I want the post list to be shown. We're going to want a post date, a post, actual post URL, post title, and we're going to have some excerpts. Now, just to simplify it, we'll get rid of that bit. So what we can see here is that we should end up with a list of posts, and for each of the posts we're going to have some data about it. And we have these classes, but these classes don't currently exist, so that won't do anything. These won't be turned in. This won't affect our styling in any way. But in theory, if we now hit save and we go and start the website, let's click on the link. I would have expected to see some posts, and yet there is none. So let's work out why not. Right, okay, so there's no posts. What have we done wrong? Let's have a quick look. I know what it'll be. If we go to our index.markdown, which is where the content is, we are still pointing at the default layout. And obviously we've added a new layout called index. We need to update that. So let's go back to the website now. Let's refresh the page. Still broken. Okay, so clearly something's different with our code to the Minima. Let's go back here. Let's see. We've got. Could it be as simple as site.posts? And then what we do for post in site.posts, let's give that a go maybe, and there we have it. So yeah, so the clearly there was a couple of things happening in the base template for Minima that our default template wasn't doing. So we've now fixed that up. We are specifically looking in the site.posts in order to find our posts, and then we could reuse its code in order to create an unordered list of our posts with the date, with the title and an excerpt. So this is just the very start of the post so that you get a flavor for it. And then if we come back over here, let's click on the Kubernetes one. Yes, we get the full page. So looking much better. We still don't have any pages, so let's fix that next. Okay, so in order to add the pages, I think we're going to have to amend the default template, which we're looking at here. Maybe the best way to do that is to go and grab the code. So let's have a look. So we're now in the hacker theme GitHub page. We've gone to layouts. We can see the default now. If we look at raw, we can grab all the code, and then we can start changing this to match how we want it to be. So let's just exit out of that. We're going to need a new file. We're going to call it default.html. I'm going to drop in the file that we got from the theme. Now what happens here with Jekyll themes is if we have something that matches what's in the actual theme, this file will overwrite the one that's in the theme. So we can very quickly go and have a look and see which area we want to change. So we could leave this section, we could possibly have a new section. We could give it an ID of pages. Okay, so in the page section, we're going to have to loop through the site pages and display them as links. So using liquid templates, let's do just that. So let's create a liquid template block. And we're going to do a for loop. So we'll do for page in site.pages. So that's the collection that we're going to query. And then we're going to want to end this for. Let's do an end for. Okay, so what this is going to do is go through each of the pages inside of the site pages collection, and then we're going to want to have a link. So let's have an anchor tag for a link. We're going to need the href, so this is actually where the page is going to link to. We want that to link to the page URL. Then we're going to want to display the actual page title, so let's do that. And let's escape that in case there's any characters that can't be displayed as part of a link. And then they're all going to be, so an anchor tag is a inline element. So if we just went through each of the pages, all the page titles will just be smashed together. So we need something to give us a space. So keeping it simple, let's just use a non-breaking space. So that'll just put a space between each of these. So what should happen is we should get our about and contact pages within our header section now. So let's go and check to see if that's the case. If we go back up to our server address, let's click on that, bring that over. Oh look, we can see about and contact. Let's hit on contact. That's got my contact page and about. And we'll click on the top. We get back to the home page. Okay, so that totally works. Doesn't don't really like the order here, so maybe we could do a couple more changes. If we go back into here, let's have a look, see how's this put together. So we've got this download section, we've got the site description. I think maybe if we just move that up before the site description, and then let's go back to the browser. Let's refresh that. Okay, a little bit better, so we can now see this is in our navigation. So go to home, go to about, go to contact, and we can have a look at the individual contents. Okay, I think that will do for that. So we've made all our changes locally. Let's go and double check our GitHub IO page. So this is still using our old theme, so we're going to need to push the changes up. So for that, let's go back to our terminal. Let's Control-C to stop serving locally. And what we're going to do is git status. So you can see that we've now got the new files that we've been working on. So let's do git add and a dot. So that will now add those to the file. So let's just do a git status there. Yep, all the changes have been staged. Now we need to commit them. So git commit. Let's do hacker theme. And then once it's committed, we need to do a git push. So the account I'm doing the push on, okay, that's all up there now. And if we go to our GitHub page, let's go to github.com. Go to our site, go to actions. You can see we're now being built. So the build's been triggered in the GitHub action. Once it's done the deployment, we should be able to see the changes on our site. Okay, GitHub Actions is reporting that the site has been deployed. Let's go over, let's refresh, and look, it looks exactly as it did on our local machine. Let's just double check. We have a contact page, we've got an about page. I can go to the home, I can click on my blog post, I can see all my content. So there we have it, a Jekyll website hosted on GitHub Pages with a different theme from the default, with a bit of custom content where we've started amending the theme. We've got our own blog articles, and that's really, I think, a good place to leave it. You'll now have a good understanding of how GitHub Pages and Jekyll work together, and if you want to dive a bit deeper, you can go and check the Jekyll website and its docs and how you would customize the theme further. But really the best way to learn, I think, is to play about with other people's themes, see what they've done, try and copy some of that content into your site, fix the bugs when you find them, and you'll get a better understanding of how Jekyll works and how it works with GitHub Pages. So thanks very much everyone for listening. If you've got this far, good luck with your blog or whatever site it is that you've decided to host on GitHub Pages. And for now, this is Mike Kelly for Cloud Native Train, signing off.